This video is sponsored by FlexiSpot, more on that later. In this video, I'm going to be breaking down the minimum levels for every piece of equipment in Clash of Clans. And I'm not just going to be talking about the minimum levels alone, I'm also going to be commenting about the return on investment that you can get for your ores and where you can get the most bang for your buck, which is super important when you consider how hard ranked mode can be and how hard ores are to come by in the game in general. To start off, let's talk about the Barbarian Puppet equipment. Now for each of these pieces of equipment, I'm going to try to pick out one stat that we can actually measure against so we can see how it gets better throughout the levels. For this piece of equipment, I think it's the effective barbarian damage, which is the damage increase as well as the numbers that you spawn. As you guys can see in this chart right here, by level 9 you get 50% of the effect at only about a quarter of the resources and only 17% of the glowy ore. I think if you really want to use this equipment, this would be the starting point since it's such low investment. However, there are obviously much better options for the king and I wouldn't really recommend it. The Rage Vial is next up, and I think this is a really interesting piece of equipment. If you're using the giant gauntlet or something like that, the Rage Vial actually gets a decent amount of use and can actually help you out quite a bit. As you can see, by level 9 you get 75% of the max movement speed, and you've literally only put in less than a quarter of the ores that you would need to max the equipment. So I think it goes without saying that level 9 is not only the minimum level but also the optimum level if you're trying to save as many ores as possible. The Earthquake Boots is next up. Now this is a super meta piece of equipment if you use it with the Spiky Ball, but what I think is really interesting about this equipment is that it does not need high levels to become really good. The main stat is obviously the damage percentage that you get from the Earthquake Boots, and the interesting thing is by level 6 of the Earthquake Boots you get 75% of the total damage that you would get for the max level. That's only 8% of the shiny cost and 6% of the glowy cost that you would need for the max level as well. So the Earthquake Boots, if you get it to level 6, it's the best return on investment level, and on top of that it is also the minimum level. Next up we have the Vamp Stache. Although it's not super meta, a lot of people do like to use this piece of equipment if they don't have the epics. I think the main stat for this piece of equipment is the healing per hit, and that's what we are going to track. If you guys take a look at this chart right here, by level 9 we get 53% of the total healing per hit, and I think that is a decent place to start. So if you want to switch to this equipment, that would be the minimum level, and it's a really good level for your return on investment. This one is a little interesting though because the latter half, levels 9 to 18, actually scale pretty decently, so you can't just leave it at level 9, but if you want to start, I think level 9 is a good place. And guys, I promise level 9 is not like the only level, alright? There are really good ones throughout this video, so don't worry. Next up we have our first epic, and that is the Giant Gauntlet. When it comes to the main stats for the Giant Gauntlet, there are two of them. I think it's the damage reduction percentage as well as the duration. Anytime we have two different stats like this, we can multiply them together, and this creates a multiplier. It doesn't mean anything in game, but it allows us to compare the levels really well. Let me go ahead and show you guys what I'm talking about here. If we look at this chart, you guys can see that the main stat I'm looking at is literally just those two things multiplied together, and then we see that the percentage of the max effect at level 18 is 72%. So it's actually pretty decent for you to go all the way up to level 18 and then start using this piece of equipment. At this point you have only invested 23% of the starry ores you would need to max, so I think this is a good level to go and park your Giant Gauntlet on until you have enough starry ores to spend on it. Our next equipment is the Spiky Ball. Now honestly, this is one of the best pieces of equipment in the game. I mean, hands down, it is really good. The main thing for the Spiky Ball is obviously the total damage, which is a sum of the targets the Spiky Ball has as well as the damage that it does. The minimum level is easily level 18, and the reason for this is because at this point the Spiky Ball gets 7 targets. That moves up the damage quite a bit. You guys can see in the chart right here, we have 67% of the total damage, 2/3 at level 18, but again only 23% of the starry ore cost. This equipment definitely is worth maxing eventually, but I think if you get it to level 18 you can start using it in your attacks, and man, you really want to because it is very strong. Now that's it for the Barbarian equipment. Let's go ahead and move on to the Archer Queen. First off, we have the Archer Puppet. Again, not the best piece of equipment, not one that I would recommend, but it's something that everybody gets. If you're a newer player, it might be something that you're using, so we'll go ahead and analyze it. There are two main stats for the Archer Puppet. That's the Archer number and the invisibility. Again, we're just gonna multiply them together and then use that for comparison. As you guys can see, by level 12 we get 60% of the effect of the Archer Puppet. By level 9 we only get 44%, but it scales pretty good at level 12, and then it gets smaller after that. Also at level 12 you're only putting in 40% of the glowy ores, and because of this the return on investment is pretty good at at this level, and it only gets worse after that. But again, you know, I wouldn't really recommend using this piece of equipment too much. The Invisibility Vial is next, and this is a classic piece of equipment for the queen. The main stat is both the damage and the duration. We're just gonna multiply these together, as I've already mentioned for these types of equipment. Again, for this piece of equipment, it's not level 9, but it's level 12. You get that 67% of the max effect, which is 2/3 of the effect, at only 40% of the cost. So I think this is the best return on investment level, and this is the level that I would go to. In general, when it comes to damage pieces of equipment, it's really hard to say like, hey, this is your minimum level, because honestly, it depends on your town hall and the strength of the buildings that you're hitting. So you want to be higher damage as you go higher in town hall, but I'm just letting you guys know that I would at least start at level 12 for this one. Next up is the giant arrow. It is a meta piece of equipment in the game. It's used a lot in higher level attacks, mid-level attacks, literally everywhere. The main level for this is level 9, because at that level you can take out air sweepers by simply using the giant arrow, and that's one of its main uses. So I think if you get it to that level, you can start using it. Next up, we have the healer puppet. Now this one has a very interesting minimum level, and unfortunately it's pretty high for a common piece of equipment. It is level 15, and the reason for this is because that is when we get the final healer. If you guys take a look at the chart, the total heal percentage jumps from 61% at level 14 to 91% of the max value at level 15. So that's definitely where we want to go. Next up, we have the magic mirror. Now the magic mirror obviously is really hard to quantify. Back in the day, I did analysis for the magic mirror by looking at the burst damage that you can get for every 1 second, and that's basically what you guys can see in the chart right here. The minimum level is easily level 18 though, because that is when you're going to get both copies out of the mirror, and that is why the damage is about 53% of the max at that level. Now 53% isn't anything crazy, but again, 23% of the starry ore is the cost that you're paying, so it's 100% worth it given how little you're paying. Next up, we have the action figure minimum level, and this one is not as great as you would expect. The main stat for this action figure is going to be the HP of the giant, and that's going to progress actually increasingly exponentially over time. Because of that, you actually have to get the giant to higher levels. As you guys can see, by level 21, you're going to have 68% of the maximum hit points that the giant can have, and that's going to require 44% of the starry ores to max this piece of equipment. So it is something that is a bit more expensive, and that is something to keep in mind if you are trying to upgrade this equipment. Next up, we have the frozen arrow. Honestly, I'm not even going to make a chart for this equipment. This equipment is one of the worst in the game. Honestly, I think it has some of the worst utility right now. If you want to upgrade it, you can get it up to level 9, and that way you'll have the most continuous slowdown. You won't have the max effect, but you'll have the continuous effect, which is what you want. Honestly, I'm not going to get into it too much, but level 9, trust me on this one. This one is just not that good, so we're not even going to have a chart for it. Now, honestly, guys, these types of videos take a lot of time and money to edit, and that is why we have a sponsor for today's video, and that is FlexiSpot. Now, FlexiSpot is sponsoring two different products. One is the C7 Max chair, and one is the E7 desk. Now, both of these products are really important, not only to your own comfort, but they're also important for your health. People who use old chairs are going to be more prone to back injuries, and I've seen a lot of these in the clinic, but the C7 Max chair gives you a backrest with lumbar support that has height adjustment as well. You can also adjust the seat depth, and the memory foam cushion is good for hours of use. Now, if you're looking at screens all the time, you could have a lot of neck issues if you're not giving your neck a lot of rest, but you don't have to worry about that with this chair because you get a 3D adjustable headrest that tilts to find your ideal angle. The armrests are also 5D, so you can basically move them into whatever position that you need, and there is a reclining function, as you guys can see me using right now. Now, this chair can be an investment, but you can save $50 when you use the code C730 with the link in the description. And if your budget is limited, you can also go for the C5 or for the C7 Morpher if you want something with upper backrest support as well. But here's the thing, guys, sitting down all the time is not the healthiest thing for you to do, even if you have optimum support. And that is why FlexiSpot is also offering the E7 standing desk for your use. Now, let me tell you guys something. This table is extremely sturdy and well constructed. It's extremely easy to move this desk up or down based on whatever height you need it to be at whatever time. And guys, when this desk goes up and down, it's not rackety at all. It's extremely stable, as you guys can see from the video right here, and it can hold a ton of weight. As you guys can see, it's holding my nieces, and forget that, it's holding even me, as you guys can see right here. You can use the discount code YTE370 for 30% off, or you could straight up just get a discount if you're a medical student, graduate, teacher, or part of the military. And if it's still too expensive, I fully get it. They are gonna have a huge sale on Black Friday where you can get up to 80% off. Also, with both of these products, there's a 30-day risk-free return, as well as a 10-year warranty on the chair and a 15-year warranty on the desk. Links are in the description, as I've already mentioned, and thank you FlexiSpot for sponsoring this video. All right, for the minion prints, first up we have the Henchman Puppet. The Henchman Puppet is a little bit interesting. I don't think people are using this equipment for their damage as much, but more so tanking, especially for air bombs and things like that. That's the case. The main stat is going to be that Henchman HP, and as you guys can see in this chart right here, you get 64% of that HP without literally doing anything. So if the point of your Henchman Puppet is to just tank for air bombs for your minion prints, so you don't get, just automatically lose the minion prints, then you don't really need to level up this piece of equipment. I mean, you're gonna get a lot of that HP straight out the bat. Of course, you can go to level 9 and get the 72%, and it really isn't that expensive to get that level, but honestly, if it's just for tanking purposes, you can use it right out the gate. Next up, we have probably one of my favorite pieces of equipment in the game, the Dark Orb, and this equipment is super meta right now. The main stat is the slowdown percentage and the duration, so we're just gonna multiply these together so that we can compare. And as you guys can see, by level 12 we get about 58% of the max level effect, and we also get a 13-second duration at this point. So I think this is a really good level to go ahead and try to get your Dark Orb too. You're also only putting in 40% of the glowy ores, so great return on investment. Next up we have the metal pants. Now this one is also interesting. I think the main stats for this piece of equipment is the reduction in percentage as well as the duration of the equipment. If you guys take a look at this chart right here, I think the best level that you can get this to is level 9, because at that point you will have 2/3 of the effect, 66%, at literally less than a quarter of the cost. So this is a very good return on investment as well as an effective level for actually seeing results in your attacks. Next up we have the Noble Iron, and this piece of equipment is really interesting. It's a common piece of equipment, so we're all going to have access to it, and the main stat for this equipment is the total burst damage, or basically the amount of shots that you have as well as the additional damage. If you look at this chart right here, I think that the best level to get it to is level 12. At that point you're seeing 77% of that burst damage, but there's another reason that you should get it to level 12, and that is because that is when the range becomes 10.5, and air defense has the range of 10, and you don't want your minion prints to get picked off by those air defenses. So I think that's why it's really important to get to level 12, and that is the minimum level. Next up we have the Dark Crown. This is a really interesting piece of equipment. Obviously it has a nice functionality, but it is a good part of the meta right now if you are using the minion prints. The main stat is going to be obviously the maximum hit points or DPS increase that you're going to get as a result of this equipment. If you take a look at this chart right here, I think the main level or the minimum level that you want to get it to is level 18, and the reason for that is because at this point you're having 70% of the maximum effect, but again you're only putting in 23% of the starry ore. That is an unbeatable return on investment, and I think you should at least get it to that level if you want to use it. Next up we have a piece of equipment that is obviously close to me. I really love this piece of equipment. It is the Meteor Staff. Now the main thing that we want to look at with the Meteor Staff is the damage that is dealt in a certain amount of time. For me, I just use the constant of 90 seconds, and the issue with the Meteor Staff, as you guys can tell in this chart right here, is that it really gets stronger at the later levels, and because of that you need to invest a lot into it to actually see the results. Level 24 is the minimum level. At that point you will see 74% of the effects, and you're putting in about that much percent of the ores as well. So this piece of equipment is terrible when it comes to return on investment, and that is something that I would caution you only really use it if you're going to max it out. All right, for our Grand Warden equipment, we're going to start off with the Eternal Tome. This is a classic. I mean, if you don't have this maxed already and you're looking, maybe this is a newer account, the main stat is obviously the duration of the Eternal Tome. Interestingly enough, you get 82% of that duration at level 9, so that is going to be that ideal level for the return on investment as well as the minimum level. But again, this is the type of equipment you really want to have maxed out because every half second matters. The Healing Tome is next up. Again, a commonly used piece of equipment. A lot of you might already have this maxed, but if you don't worry. The main stat for us is the total heal. That is the heal per second times the duration. At level 9, the total heal is 60% of the maximum heal at less than a quarter of the cost. So again, this is a really good return on investment level, and I think 60% is a decent amount to see some difference in your attacks. So I would recommend at least getting it to this level. Next up, we have the Rage Gem. Now this one is a little bit hard to actually put a number on. The main stat for the Rage Gem gem is going to be the damage percentage, or that boost that you get as a result of the rage gem. And as you guys can see in the chart right here, it is a little bit interesting. At level 9 you get 60% of the effect, and that's great for return on investment, but I really think you want to aim for level 15. The reason for that is you get 90% of the effect. I know that's a little bit more expensive to get to, but it is a huge jump between level 14 and level 15. So ideally, if you're going to be switching to this piece of equipment, you really want to aim for level 15, and then you basically have it maxed, so you don't have to go all the way to 18 at that point if you want to save on some ores. The life gem is next, and this equipment is not used all that often, but obviously the main stat for this one, in my opinion, is the percentage of HP increase that you get for whatever troops that you are using. This is the chart for the life gem right here, and you guys can see at level 9 you get 70% of the maximum effect at only less than a quarter of the cost, 17% of the glowy ore, but 70% of the maximum effect. I think level 9 is definitely the minimum level you want to go ahead and get for this piece of equipment. Next up we have the fireball. Now this is an equipment that is used in metas across multiple town halls. The main stat is going to be damage times area, not radius, but area. So I did calculate the area of the circle for each one of these levels, just so you guys know that this is done properly. And as you guys can see in this chart right here, the minimum level is level 24. The reason for this is because that is when the radius goes all the way up to 6. And as a result, your damage percentage of max goes from 64%, which is not that great, to 95%. And that is definitely what we want to aim for. Next up, we have the Lavaloon Puppet, a personal favorite of mine, as you guys know, as well as Jadon's, as well as a bunch of other creators. Guys who know what's up, they love the Lavaloon Puppet, okay? All right, I'm done being aggressive. Look, so the Lavaloon Puppet, this one doesn't require any math. This chart is actually fully empty. The Lavaloon Puppet, you only need to get it to level 9 because that's when you get the second Lavaloon. So that's your minimum level. Obviously, if you go higher than that, you'll have more aura, but that's just up to you. The Heroic Torch is next up on the list, and the main stat is going to be the duration as well as the speed. So you multiply both of those together to get our comparison. I have the chart up right here, and I'm going to say that level 9 is where you want to go to because you get 54% of the maximum effect at literally 2% of the starry ore. So that's the best return on investment level. But I'll be 100% honest, I don't use this piece of equipment too much. I don't see myself using this piece of equipment too much, and as a result, I don't have too much play data on it or like actual experience on it, but the stats don't lie. I mean, 54% at only 2% of the cost is what you're going to get at level 9. Next up, we have the Royal Champions equipment, and guys, we're going to start with the Seeking Shield. This is a classic piece of equipment. It is used by a lot of players. I think the main stat is obviously the damage that you're going to get because it's always going to be 4 targets. As you guys can see in this chart right here, the minimum level is level 12. However, the reason for that is because I think at level 12 you can one-shot air defenses and archer towers at max level. If you use this piece of equipment, you would ideally like to one-shot the buildings because that's going to help and you're not going to get them repaired by builders and things like that. So you want to at least get it to level 12. The Royal Gem is next. I love this piece of equipment when equipment first came out, but I don't see a lot of people using it as much anymore. The main stat is obviously the hit point recovery, and at level 9 we get 75% of the effect. Oof, at 17% of the glowy ore cost. So this is really unbeatable when it comes to return on investment. I think level 9 is definitely your minimum level. Next up, we have the Haste Vial, which is used quite a bit. It's a good piece of equipment. The main stat is going to be the duration as well as the speed increase that you get. Both scale over the levels. You guys can see this chart right here. What I would recommend is actually level 12. I think level 9 you get 64%, which is a little bit mild, but at level 12 you get 75%. That's actually pretty decent, and you get 9 seconds of duration. The costs get really expensive after that, so I would be a little bit wary of that, but at least get it to level 12 and it should serve you pretty well. Next up, we have the Electro Boots. Now this is really interesting. This is the #1 piece of equipment in the game right now, hands down. I don't think anybody would argue that at all, but you don't really need to upgrade it that much. It's really good right out of the gate with the aura DPS that it gets. At level 1 it's 66% of the max aura DPS, so realistically you could use it right out of the gate, but it's so cheap to upgrade to level 9 that I would just do it, and at that point you get 78% of the max effect at 2% of the cost in starry ores. I mean, this is a no-brainer to upgrade to at least level 9, but beyond that, honestly, it's completely okay if you wait. And last but certainly not least, we have the Rocket Spear. Now this is an equipment that I like quite a bit. It's used often in the meta and it's very helpful in many attacks. The main stat is basically the total burst damage, which is the shots, the number of shots times the damage that you actually do. I would say that the minimum level for this is level 18. And the reason for this is because that's when you get the maximum amount of shots. Again, this has a really long range, and as a result, you want to have as many shots as possible because you'll keep the royal champion safe while she's doing that. So you get 79% of the maximum burst damage at this point with only 23% of the starry ore investment. I think it's really worth it. Next up, we have the Hog Rider Puppet for the royal champion. Now the main stat that I think is most important with this is the total hog health that you actually get, and that is because if your Hog Riders do not reach the target, they get absolutely obliterated. This is the chart right here. You guys can see that at level 9 you get 58% of the effect with less than a quarter of the cost, which is really good for a return on investment. However, if that isn't enough, if you've gotten it there and it's not enough, I think you can get all the way up to level 15. That is when you get the 9th hog and you get 82% of the health, but level 9 is definitely best for return on investment and a good minimum level. But once again, if the Hog Riders don't get there, you're in trouble. And guys, that's it. Hopefully you guys use this as a reference for all of your equipment upgrades. If you haven't already, make sure to go ahead and check out FlexiSpot with the links in the description. Thanks for stopping by, and I'll see you guys in the next video.